So maybe you've been calling some landlords and some property managers, and you have to know how to pitch them and kind of explain to them what makes you a good tenant and why they should rent their property to you. So instead of kind of like asking permission and asking them to allow you to rent the property and run an Airbnb, um, you should really explain to them how you can solve the problems. And the biggest problem that landlords have is vacancy. Vacancy means they are not collecting rent for the month. They are not making money. So if they have a mortgage, they have to pay out of pocket, right? Even if they don't have a mortgage, now they're missing a couple of $1,000s for the month for every month that it's vacant. So you're going to explain to them that you are not a single person. You are a corporation. You want to sign a corporate lease. You're well funded, right? So the landlord doesn't have to worry about you losing your job and not being able to pay rent. You're going to tell them that you pay every month, you pay on time. Um, you know, whether the Airbnb makes money or not, the landlord will get their rent. You have to assure them of that. Um, Another problem that you're going to be solving for them is you're going to be taking care of their property. Landlords spend a lot of money to buy a property, right? In some places, even $1 million or more, right? A couple of 100,000, high hundreds of thousands. Uh, they don't just want anyone living in there, and maybe they'll trash their place. They're gonna destroy it. They're gonna leave it a mess. They're gonna damage it, etc. You're gonna explain to them that you will have cleaners in there probably every few days, at most, or at least once a week. Whereas a regular tenant, they move in, you're not gonna know what's going on in the house until maybe a year later. If that long-term tenant, they have a leaky sink, they don't tell you, that's gonna cause a lot of damage throughout the months. Whereas for us, we're running an Airbnb out of that property. The cleaners are gonna see it, or the guests are going to complain. They're going to tell us we need to get it fixed right away, because there's no way we can have a leaking sink or a leaking toilet and then able to run our Airbnb business efficiently. We're going to get a lot of complaints from the guests. We're going to get bad reviews, and that's not good for business. So just assure that the landlord that you're going to have to keep their property in tip-top condition, in pristine condition, in order to be able to run your Airbnb business efficiently, and to make sure the guests are happy. You're gonna explain to them that um, you're gonna have smart locks installed. You're gonna have ring cameras, ring doorbells installed to the front. You're gonna have noise detectors installed, so you know exactly who is going in your house. You have control of um, the locks at all times, and you're able to monitor the noise, because a lot of landlords are also worried about um, people coming in and out, people throwing crazy parties, disturbing the neighbors. Then the neighbors are angry. So you just really have to explain to all to the landlords all the things you're gonna do to make sure the place is secure. You're gonna be monitoring and managing everyone that's coming in and out. Nothing crazy is gonna be happening. And another concern that you might hear from the landlord or property manager is that, oh, we don't want random people staying here. We don't know who is staying here. You're going to tell them that you guys will be doing background checks on all guests. You're going to have their IDs on file. You will know exactly who is staying at the property. We currently use a service called Superhug, and it's a third-party service. People have to upload their ID. They have to do take a selfie with their ID. Um, we didn't do this in the beginning, and we had a lot of problems. People were uh, committing crimes, doing all types of stupidness, doing drugs. Um, Police were called, and police asked for their ID, and we didn't have it. So it makes everything more efficient, and definitely filters out a lot of bad guests if they know that you have their ID on file. And going back to the problem of taking care of the property, you know, you're gonna remind them that you're gonna have professional cleaners in there every few days. As soon as a guest leaves, I have a cleaner in there, and we have to have a cleaner in there cleaning, so it's ready for the next guest. Versus a long-term tenant, how often are they gonna be cleaning, right? You don't know if ever. Um, a long-term tenant might be in there cooking every day. Your Airbnb guests, they might cook, they might not cook. So it will be a lot cleaner too, because your Airbnb guests won't be in there cooking every day. Um, some landlords also say, "Hey, I don't want all this wear and tear on my property. All these people coming in and out, wear and tear." And I ask them, I'm like, "Hey, if you have a long-term tenant, how many days out of the year is he going to be living in there? Most likely 365 days, right? Other than maybe he goes on vacation, he goes out of town, whatever, but he's going to be in there majority of the time. Um, Whereas our Airbnb guests, it's highly unlikely we are going to have 100% occupancy and have someone living in there 365 days of the year. So generally, of course, depending on the market and the type of property, we aim for like 70 to 80% occupancy. So you could actually tell the landlord, like, hey, like 20 to 30% of the time, your property is going to be empty. So you're actually going to get less wear and tear with us running an Airbnb versus you renting it to a long-term tenant. Okay, so now the landlord kind of understands what makes you a good tenant, how you can solve his problems. Landlords are usually more flexible. I know that some landlords actually preferred I signed a lease with them personally versus under a corporation because they're like, oh, how do I find you if this thing happens? Or, like, how do I know who you are? I don't want to do a corporate lease. Or they would want me to do a personal guarantee on top of the corporate lease. Both is fine. But for the apartment buildings, if you guys are trying to get into an apartment building, they will most likely want you to sign a corporate lease, and then that is when you will have to get an LLC, and we will get into that in the next video. Actually, one more thing before we get into the next video about LLCs. Um, Another thing you want to assure the landlord is that you will handle all the minor repairs. Um, a lot of landlords, when they buy real estate, they buy property, you know, they want to be investors. They want it to be passive. Most of them, most of the time, they want it to be passive income, but it usually isn't. If you owned a property before, you know that you deal with a lot of headaches, a lot of tenants. You're dealing with, clogged toilets and leaky sinks and stuff like that. You floods sometimes. So you want to let them know that, hey, I want to call you and bother you as little as possible. I just want to pay you your rent every month. And of course, if there's like a crack on the roof, your roof is leaking, then I have to bother you and call you. But minor stuff, maybe $300 or $500 and below, up to you, whatever you can you find acceptable. You can let them know, like, hey, anything under $300, I'll cover. I won't bother you. Um, and you let them know like that you will be the property manager. You will be the one um, taking care of everything. You don't want to call him and bother him for any of that minor stuff. Um, so that he'll be happy to hear that. And then also number two, you want that for yourself because if you have say you have a leaky pipe, you have to call the landlord. The landlord has to call a handyman. The handyman will ask the landlord what time he go. Then the landlord has to call you. You have to ask the guest. It's just a really long and slow process, not efficient at all when you have that many people you have to communicate between. Um, you want to get things fixed as quickly as possible to make the guests happy and to make sure things are fixed before your next guest check in. So you let the landlord know, hey, I'm gonna handle it. You'll fix it. I'll send my handyman over. I'll pay for it. You don't have to worry about getting a call in the middle of the night for a leaky sink, you know? So definitely don't forget to mention that and pitch that to the landlord. And I'm sure he'll be happy to hear it. All right, see you guys in the next video.